When the AFC Championship started, it looked like the making of a one-sided beatdown. In under 2 quarters, the Chiefs took a huge 21-3 lead over the Bengals. Some analysts already thought this game was over. Idiots like myself were ready to write the Bengals off and pencil Kansas City as the future Super Bowl contender. Well, the Bengals did the unthinkable. They came back from an 18-point lead and they ended up winning this game in overtime. In this video, I wanted to talk about how the Bengals shut down Patrick Mahomes in the second half. After such a dominant start to his game, I wanted to see what kind of adjustments they made to do this. Before we do that though, if you can do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to my channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. To start this breakdown, the Bengals defense played a variety of coverages in the first half. For the majority of their snaps, they lined up with a 2-high safety shell, then they played a 2-high safety defense like cover 2 or cover 4. They occasionally played other defenses like cover 6, but cover 2 and cover 4 made up a decent amount of their play calls. Even when the Bengals rotated out of that 2-high shell post-snap and ended up running a 1-high defense like cover 3 or cover 1, the Chiefs seemed to have all the answers. They were unstoppable in the first half. On their first 3 drives, they scored 3 touchdowns. And it wasn't until the final play of the second quarter when the Bengals technically got a stop. Now, I don't want to get into the reasoning on why the Chiefs went for it from the 1-yard line without any timeouts left, but the Bengals were able to keep it to an 11-point deficit. While the first half was a beatdown, the second half was a completely different story. When Patrick Mahomes threw for an impressive 220 yards on 21 attempts, he did roughly the opposite in the second. On his 18 passes, he gained a total of 55 yards. On top of that, he was also sacked 4 times. When I went through his film, the first thing that stood out to me was the difference in the coverages the Bengals ran. For example, when they only ran a drop 8 rush 3 coverage on maybe 2 or 3 snaps in the first half, they did that on roughly half of their snaps in the second. This drastically slowed down the Chiefs' offense. Instead of allowing Mahomes to complete the easy quick game throws underneath to get guys like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in space, those plays were limited much easier. Since the Bengals zones were played much closer together, they were able to limit the yak created by this offense. In a spread West Coast scheme, yak is pretty much everything. They want to get their wide receivers on the move. This couldn't happen nearly as much against his drop 8 coverage. On top of that, Mahomes just didn't look the same. Something about having too much time and not having any pressure to make plays that somehow got into his head. Now, before we look at an example, I want to give a huge shout out to Albert for sponsoring this week's video. If you don't know Albert, they're an app that replaces your traditional bank account. Unlike traditional banks that charge $35 overdraft fees and that don't give you cash back on your debit card purchases, Albert is the opposite. They're free to sign up and they're super easy to use. They never charge you overdraft fees, so that's a thing of the past. Also, if you're ever in a pinch for money, they'll even spot you if you need it. Say you're at a gas station and you realize you don't have the cash to pay, they'll let you advance up to $250 from your next paycheck. You can pay it back with no interest and no credit check. Make sure you download to see what you qualify for. On top of that, Albert will help you manage your finances. They have a team of experts called geniuses that will help you make a plan and will answer any questions if you get stuck. Click the link in the description box to download the Albert app today. For a limited time only, when you open a checking account at Albert and connect a qualifying direct deposit, you'll get $150. I highly recommend giving it a try. Before the break, I mentioned that we need to look at an example. This play on 2nd and 6 at the start of the third quarter will do. The Chiefs are in empty, and they send 5 receivers on routes. On the front side of the play, you have a 3-man dagger concept, while on the backside, you have a choice fade run by the 2 on the right. After taking the snap, Mahomes is hoping that the seam route run up the middle will clear a path for Tyreek Hill across the defense. However, since the Bengals dropped 8 into coverage, this standard throwing lane was covered. There was a linebacker sitting in an underneath zone waiting to pick it off. The funny part is that there's plenty of time for Mahomes to reevaluate this play. He can step into the pocket, he can scramble, really the world is his oyster. I don't know why he felt the need to throw from a poor platform, but there's nobody around him that dictated the footwork. The ball was thrown high behind his receiver, and the defender was able to make the play. In addition to how the drop 8 coverage affected his footwork, too many times Mahomes would scramble way outside the pocket even when it was relatively clean. Mahomes would actually invite the pressure even when his offensive line had the advantage. Anytime you scramble from hash to numbers, this gives the pass rusher the edge. They can break past their respective blockers, and they can finally hit the quarterback. Now, in that previous example I used, I mentioned inaccurate throws. In the second half, this was a major problem. I hate to use the word rattled or to say you looked off, but the truth is that Mahomes didn't look the same. There's no other way to describe it. His footwork was trash, which led to poor ball placement, his decision making was borderline awful, and he had just no feel for the pocket even when it was clean. He didn't play like the vintage Patrick Mahomes we're used to. His interception in the third quarter was one of the worst I've seen. Like, what is Mahomes doing here? It's a run-pass option featuring twin stick routes, and for some reason with the defender in his face, Mahomes still tried to make this throw. It's 2nd and 3, so there's no reason for this. Channel your Alex Smith teachings and just live to fight another down. Now, I said this earlier, but Mahomes didn't face a ton of pressure in the first half. In fact, I only counted about 3 plays where he was really under pressure. He was under fire a lot more in the second. Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard both played very well in this one. The same can be said for BJ Hill too. They took advantage of their one-on-ones. Since Mahomes has a nasty habit of setting up too deep in the pocket at a depth of 9 or even 10 yards, this allowed them to bend the corner. This certainly helped the Bengals. Overall, and to wrap up this video, I think the Bengals did one thing really well in this game. They adjusted to the game time situation. They saw the Chiefs were decimating their standard drop 7 coverages like cover 2 and cover 4, and they adjusted until they found something that worked. After they found that coverage, or drop 8, either in a cover 6 drop 8 form or cover 2 man drop 8, they did a good job of sprinkling that in it and timing those snaps well. Something like 45% of their pass coverage in the second half were some form of drop 8. It clearly worked here. As far as Mahomes is concerned, this wasn't the best second half I've seen. In fact, he was pretty bad. I really wonder if other teams will try to use more drop 8 coverage against him in the future. Drop 8 usually works well against a systematic quarterback with limited improvisational ability. So it was truthfully a bit strange that it worked really well here. But if there's one guy that I think can easily learn and consistently beat it though, that's Patrick Mahomes. I'm obviously not worried about his future. Going back to the Bengals though, they just made their 3rd Super Bowl appearance. I'm actually really pumped to see what happens. Them facing the Rams will require a lot of in-game adjustments just like this one. Holding the Chiefs, or really any team, to just 3 points in the second half, it gave this offense a chance. I know everyone is talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but this defense definitely deserves that credit too. Well, that's all I have for you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks again, and you can support me directly via my Patreon link below. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at SamuelRGold.